The following is a Candlepin Stars and Strikes rebroadcast featuring some of our most memorable programs. And welcome back to Park Place Lanes here in Windham, New Hampshire, once again for Stars and Strikes doubles on a Sunday afternoon. Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy. We're very happy to have you with us. And last week we began a brand new 4-week series here on the program. And it was a good week for Paul Willits and Tom O'Brien as they came up with a win in combination, and now they're going to try and make it 2 in a row today.
Yeah, bowled very well as a team, and bowled against 2 newcomers, the Barassa brothers, and likewise this week, 2 brand new bowlers have not appeared with us, and be interesting to see how this one comes out.
Okay, one of these teams, of course, could perhaps get hot and go all the way to the top and win this series and qualify for the Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions. We'll let you know what the other teams are remaining in this series a little bit later on. But right now we want you to meet all of our competitors for this week's show. First of all, our number 5 seeded team, they did come up with that win last week, throwing a 360 in combination. Paul Willits from Framingham, Mass., and Tom O'Brien from neighboring Natick.
Okay, and Paul comes in averaging 119. His roll-off score 623. Tom O'Brien 127 average, and his roll-off score identically at 623.
Again, last week they had a lot of marks. They struggled a little bit on the fills, but they did have marks in good spots. It seemed they were always able to come up with a big one when they needed it.
Right, and they made that the final change as far as who was going to start that third game, which they elected to go with Tom, and he threw 4 or 5 marks that last game.
All right, let's meet a couple of other newcomers to our program here on Stars and Strikes Doubles. From Ware, New Hampshire, Dave Coutermarsh, and his partner from Croydon, New Hampshire, Dan Valcourt.
Okay, and Dave comes in averaging 118, roll-off score 630, and Dan Valcourt averaging 123, roll-off score 619.
All right, of course, 4th place money will go to the runner-up team in this week's show. The winning team will move on next week to take on our number 2 seeded pair, and of course we will move on in 2 weeks to have our series championship match. But lots to come before that. We have 3 strings of Scotch doubles men's format coming up here on Stars and Strikes doubles, and we'll get this match started right after we have these words. Don't go away. Well, once again, if you missed us last week here on Stars and Strikes doubles, Paul Willits and Tom O'Brien came up with a 360 to knock off Paul and Rick Barassa, the all-brother team here on the program in this series. And so now Paul and Tom move on to try and make it 2 in a row today against Dave Coutermarsh and Dan Valcourt. You see our number 2 seeded team, Bob Mazer and Steve Tierney, will be here next week against the winners. And Mike Morgan and Paul St. Pierre comprise our number 1 seeded team. They'll be here in 2 weeks. But right now, we begin week 2 of this series with Paul Willits for the team of Willits and O'Brien. And a funny little incident happened right before we started the show today. We had Dave Coutermarsh and Dan Valcourt warming up on the lanes, and of course we give the bowlers a chance to loosen up a little bit before we start the show, and Paul and Tom were sitting back here behind us, and we were wondering why they weren't warming up, so we spoke to them about it, and they each went up. They threw 1 ball, strike, and then sat down. That was it. 1 warm-up ball.
Wow. 3-6-10 with a 7-pin. Pretty good. Right around the 7. That close.
'19 opening pair for Paul Willits. And now our first look at Dan Valcourt. We talked about the Barassa brothers a minute ago. Dan's brother has been here, Larry Valcourt, and there's a strike for Dan. The first ball he throws here on the program.
Well, he can go home today and say, how you do? Well, the first ball I threw was a strike. Let's see if he can add to the story. This time a little light, but that's usually what happens here. You get a lot of pin action. And he leaves himself the 7, the 8, and the 10, and all kinds of lumber out in front. Oh boy, how did the 7 stand up?
So it's a 9 on the strike. I'm going to have Joe Paglia take care of a loose ball that's coming all the way back.
Oops, hang on.
Joe decided it easier to just throw it back at him.
Yeah, keep the Bulls on their toes here.
Well, why go through the trouble of having it go all the way down and then through the ball return and everything?
Yeah, you just roll it back the channel, and
I mean,
Danny scooped it up and threw it to first and got the guy by a step.
Tom O'Brien now, big left-hander.
Well, so far, 2 boxes that Paul Willits threw up there, and he hit the head pin the first ball on both frames and didn't have a spare leave. Tom O'Brien now leaves himself the 4, 7, and 10.
Sometime last season, on Stars and Strikes, we had an extensive conversation one day about pin setters, and didn't pin setters also have to return the bowling balls? Wasn't that part of their job?
Oh, the pin boys and the pin girls?
Right.
Yes, they had to put the balls up on the track and let them roll back. Yeah. Thinking about going back to that. Save a little electricity.
Tom O'Brien with a tough leave here, the 1, 6, 8, and 10. No wood. .38 for the team through 4.
Now our first look at Dave Coutermarsh.
Guy that you're familiar with.
A little unorthodox type of delivery. Kind of winds up, but gets the job done, averaging 118.
Not bad. Right on the head pin. That first ball, a little full.
And he leaves himself the 6-10 on the right and the 7 pin.
I'm going to wait for this wood to settle down a bit.
He would like to come out a little further than that so he could use the ball to carry him off that piece, but it looks to me like he's going to have to try to cut the 6 pin over.
Gonna try it. Ooh, almost. And the 10, the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt with a 10-pin lead. Let's take another look at this.
That's the 6 pin, right in behind the 7.
Not a bad effort. You see that unorthodox style that Dan was talking about.
The 1, the 2, I should say 1, the 3, and the 9. Oh, boy.
Looked like he was going to carry that. And once again, waiting for wood. He can get by that piece, however. Get to the 9 pin. Well, it works either way. 11-pin lead for the team. As always, a big thank you to our presenting sponsor here on Stars and Strikes Doubles. Been with us for several years, of course, on our regular show, our noon show. Tri-State Megabucks. Just imagine being rich. Go out and give Tri-State Megabucks a try. Don't forget to get your tickets this week. Paul Willits with a 9-box. The team of Willits and O'Brien still looking for that first mark. They had 12 last week. 11 of them were spares.
This time the 1-2 pocket and again. Wow, the 6, the 9 on the right and the 7 pin all the way over in the left-hand corner. He's going to give it a shot. Well, had to clip that wood. But still, no mark through 6. That's what he was trying to do.
Very delicate little shot there for the 10. Worth another look. Spare, perhaps, might have been there if he'd thrown that ball on the first one.
Didn't miss it by much, just slid by that wood. Dan Valcourt back up on lane 32. This 3 and 6 left for him. Only 1 mark in the match so far, and that's off the ball of Dan Valcourt. That strike in the first frame.
slipping by the spare leave. Well, one thing we find very interesting, at least I do here on the program, is seeing where everyone is from, especially because we reach a wide area here on Stars and Strikes and on Stars and Strikes doubles through various cable operators and so forth. So we hit several states and enjoy meeting folks from different parts of New England. And we're still waiting for our first bowler from Canada, by the way. It hasn't happened yet, but every once in a while a town pops up that we're not familiar with, and Dan Valcourt is from one of those towns. Dan lives in Croydon, New Hampshire, which I had never heard of. And we took an informal poll of the crew, and right. Most of the people on the crew had never heard of it either. Had you?
No, not at all.
It's a little town near Sunapee, about 500 people.
Well, actually 502, according to Larry.
Yeah,
Let's not, those two people would be kind of upset.
Tom O'Brien looking at a spare leave. And he cut it a little bit too far to the left.
And through 7, they will be without a mark.
Pinning pretty well. 4 10s and 3 9s. And there's a nice pocket hit for Tom, and he'll have another spare leave. This time the 3 and the 5.
He has to be careful if he splits these two, because he might to clip that wood in the center. Well,
there
he did,
is.
but it was enough to drive it right straight back anyways. I was afraid the ball might carry him around the 5-pin, but wood was far enough back, so it didn't hurt. Dave Coutermarsh now for his team's 7th and 8th frames.
They lead by 10, but of course he'll be opposite that mark in the 8th, and a big 9 drop for Dave.
And we'll have the testy 6-pin all by itself for a spare.
Get a full look here on this shot at Dave's delivery. And he slides by on the right. Of course, the obvious thing about his delivery is the wind-up with the right hand, but then there's the other part of it, too, which is also kind of unusual, is the stand-up style.
Yeah, he's not down on at the point of release like a lot of people. He starts there, but he actually stands back up straight.
On the head pin again, and he'll have another 9 drop, this time the 3-pin.
And he's got to be thinking about the last one.
This is opposite a spare in the 8th.
He's got this one.
Right on it.
Spare in the 8th. Matches the spare already put up by team of Willits and O'Brien. And Paul will finish their first game, filling on that spare first.
Ooh, a half Worcester on the spare. Paul Willits finished 5th in the overall roll-off, 5th out of the top 10, of course, who qualified for the program. His roll-off score was a 623, the final roll-off for this series, held at Leda Lanes in Nashua. The overall top score in the roll-off was Mike Morgan with a 686, and there's a big strike for Paul Willits in the 10th. Big first ball there.
Picks on the 1-2 pocket. They just all kind of crumble together, and the 7-pin finally goes down for the strike. Well, so should put them over the 100 mark anyways. Do that.
Second ball on the fill now. And he almost converted it for the spare. Takes a 9 for a 106. The team of Willits and O'Brien.
Now Danny Valcourt will be filling the spare in the 8th. Leading by 8, plus this fill.
Wow, a little thin for where he hit it. like it should have been better. Oh, watch this shot. He cut that 3-pin over actually too well.
Came across, missed the 5-pin on the way over, and missed the 7-pin coming back, and missed the 5-pin a second time.
And it's a 9-box. Great effort there.
And it's a 14-pin advantage. However, as you see in the scoreboard, they're opposite of strike 9. 19 pins in this final frame by Willits and O'Brien. Well,
Dan just barely clipped that head pin. The ball was breaking left to right and away from the head pin.
double piece of wood. Doesn't look like it appear to be any problem, but you never can tell with the double piece. Well, it just drives it right straight back, so if he can match to 9 fill, the lead will stay at 14.
That's the 3rd mark for the team of Valcourt and Coutermarsh. Oh, big fill there, leaving the 9-pin somehow. Looked like it actually left the deck, came up, and then stayed standing somehow. 120, and the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt with the lead. 120 to 106 after 1. We'll be back. Game 2 here on Stars and Strikes Doubles. The team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt getting the early edge. This is Dave Coutermarsh, and he's right in the pocket again, and this time for all of them. A little slow on the back row there, but they eventually went down.
Dave almost forgot to go over on lane 31. He's still
He wants to throw another one there.
Yeah.
He just threw a strike. Why not?
gonna savor that moment for a while. And this looks pretty good again. And that close to a double. Looking at the 9-pin and got some help out in front. Uh-oh.
Oh, trips it from behind. Dave's got a little smile as he comes back.
The wood's free. It's free. No charge for the wood. And you used every bit of it. Sometimes those are the ones. You just kind of take them for granted.
Tom O'Brien with the half Worcester.
Somebody in the audience says, oh no. I think Tom was saying a few other things to himself. I don't think oh no was one of the remarks. He works out of it with a 9. But they've got some work to do. The lead now is climbed to 25.
Yeah, the team of Willits and O'Brien led pretty much wire to wire last week, except for the very early going.
Wood turned a little bit now. Whether it turned too much to clear the 10-pin away, let's see. No, right on it. That's a nice spare. Really needed that. Matches the mark already put up by Coutermarsh and Valcourt.
There it is. Once again, the wood is free. Boy, Dan Valcourt has been throwing a very nice ball here,
especially
on
lane
Stars
32.
and Strikes doubles. Whew.
That was no doubt about that one.
It's 20 more for the team. That was on a spare.
His interesting approach too, because he's right next to the ball return in this lane, but when he ends up, he's to the left.
Oh,
it's a double. Woo. To the left of center.
Strike, spare, strike, strike. Not a bad start for the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt. Wow.
Paul Willits working on a spare. Oh boy, that ball just seemed to be flat when it hit the pins. Just a 5 fill, 247 on the left with a 610. And they're going to be in a heap of trouble at this point. About halfway through, they're going to just have to think to themselves to do the same type of thing the back half of this match. 43 pins is the lead, and that's only part of it because there's a double strike working.
The runner-up team this week will share 4th place prize money, $200. The winners, of course, move on. Come back next week. Well, how about, I was just about to say, well, he almost made it in the back door, and how about that? We're going to take a timeout after that. We're going to figure out what just happened. And we'll be back in a minute on Stars and Strikes Doubles. Well, after that rather spectacular spare by Paul Willits, we're back, and Dave Coutermarsh is working on a double strike. Left by his partner. Off target.
Well, that's one of the important balls, by the way, and it's only a 3 fill.
Going for the spare now.
That's a little better. 8-pin drop on the second strike.
81 through 4. That's not too bad. And 91 half for the team.
It's not a bad half, considering last night in the league I bowled 99.
And how many boxes was that down?
That was 10. I want to say it was 5, and I didn't bowl the last half of the game, but I can't. Too many people watch the show. Well, they've got some work to do here. The 1, the 3, the 4, the 7, the 9, and the 10. They seem to let up on that ball a little bit.
Dave works for the United States Postal Service in Laconia. Dave has 4 children, Eric, Christy, Ben, and Naomi, and he takes it out for a 10. A couple of 10s for Dave after the double strike by his partner.
Well, it's a 54-pin lead. And Tom O'Brien will cut into that. He's working on a spare. Long ways to go.
No, Tom upset with that ball. Just 4 on the spare. Not a lot happened on that ball. For the spare, how about that? Well, he left a lot of wood down there. It was a very unusual first ball. And he had a lot of wood to work with. Now he's hoping for a better fill, and there it is. 9.
A little more aggressive with the ball up there. The last 2 frames. A little more speed. And there. 3 marks in a row. So the lead now down to 41.
Taking advantage of those 2 opens.
Match is a long ways from over.
Now Dan Valcourt off target that time.
I started to mention his approach. On both lanes, he starts to the far right-hand side of the approach and then almost walks diagonally, so when he finishes, he's to the left of the center of the lane. It works for Dan, but that's not a beginning bowler. It's not what I'd like to see them do. He's going to walk directly at the pins.
Be a 9 box for Dan.
And it's a 110 through 7.
He had a 120 opening game. There's another nice looking first ball right in the pocket, but look at the result.
You almost feel the momentum changing a little bit after that double strike. It's going to be interesting to see how this second game finishes up, because a 41-pin lead is quite a bit, but we've got a long ways to go, and they still have a string of marks working. I'm talking about the team of Willits and O'Brien. So Paul, it's up to him to keep the string going and try to cut into that lead a little more. He's thinking head pin.
And he'll have the head pin. A little bit too much of it. 6 fill.
He's got the 2-4-7 on the left. The 3-pin with a piece of wood that he'll try to slide across. Looks, well, a little too high. Looked good going down. The ball broke last minute. Now he can gain another in count if he clear these 3 out, but no, he's not going to. He's going to lose 1 in count.
That leaves the lead at 36. You see in the lower left-hand part of the CompuScore screen.
36, and he definitely wants a mark.
There's a nice pocket hit, and look at that. This time the 5-7.
Ooh, the wood turned a little bit for him. The wood turned, and the second piece is rolling in. He's going to have a real shot at this.
We hear Tom O'Brien. He's directing the wood in the background. It's important. That's why they call it a team.
Ooh, he's high. He's too high. Listed his occupations there. He's going to be a traffic cop, too. That's it going.
Dave Coutermarsh now for the final two. Interesting, the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt opened this string. Strike, spare, strike, strike, but they haven't marked since, and that takes care of that. I barely was able to finish the thought.
A little bounce there at the point of delivery. He might have taken a little bit off the ball, so the ball stayed in the pocket rather than going straight through. This time he's off to the left.
Right now, the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt with 3 spares and 5 strikes in this match. And that's a 5 fill on the strike.
Right now, I dare say the difference in the match is those 4 marks right in the row. They got a lot of extra pins. Strike, spare, double strike. And on the other side of the ledger, Willits and O'Brien, 4 marks in this game, but only 5, 4, 9, and 6 for fills.
Well, a nice 141 for the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt, 261 after 2. And Tom O'Brien is right through the center, chopping out the 1, the 5, and the 8. Plays it inside. Hang on. Nope, didn't fall the right way. Gave it a nice effort, though. And a little help. Backdoor for the 10.
Lead is back up to that 41 again. Opposite of 7 frame.
Well,
still got some work ahead of him. The 7 and the 9 pins. Well, almost have to cap that piece of wood in front of the 7 on the right-hand cap and see what happens. Oh, he's going way low.
Ooh.
Well, he might have seen something I didn't see. Maybe I have a bad angle, but I think he had to come up high in the wood.
It's a 9-box, 116 and 222 for the team of Willits and O'Brien. So Coutermarsh and Valcourt have the lead after 2. 1 game remaining here on Stars and Strikes Doubles. We'll be back in a minute. All right, Tom O'Brien set to go now as we move into our 3rd and final game. Tom and his partner, Paul Willits, are in a bit of a problem, as you can see. And for the second week in a row, they are changing their order going into the final game. It worked last week with Tom going first, so they're hoping it'll strike again.
This match comes down to, oh, nice 10. Probably 2 very important things, and that's the first game of Willits and O'Brien. We watched that 10 box where they really struggled the first 7 boxes without any marks. And then, of course, the start of the second string, Coutermarsh and Valcourt put up those 4 marks, including a double strike. So I think there you can account for the 39-pin advantage.
You notice that Tom O'Brien has stayed on lane 32. A little ahead of schedule here in Stars and Strikes Doubles this week, so we're having the bowlers roll this final game 2 boxes on the same lane.
And the slowed thoroughbreds down a little bit.
Now, when you throw all those strikes, things tend to speed up.
That's
and,
right.
It's still more strikes than spares for the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt. 5 strikes and 3 spares.
Doesn't usually happen.
Now let's see what Dan does here with the 3 and the 6. 3 and the 4, rather. That piece of wood sliding over.
Now, see, the 3 and the 6 sounded more difficult than the 3 and the 4. However, it is the other way around. The 3 and the 4 are quite a ways apart. He would rather have the 3 and the 6. He's got a piece of wood in between, though, so he may be able to hit the 3-pin on the inside. He did, and just pushed the wood behind the 4.
That will be a 9-box. The ball clipping the wood in the channel. Dan Valcourt and his wife Karen have 3 children. They have twin sons, Douglas and David. And there's another big first ball. He's thrown 3 strikes already in this match. Dan and Karen also have daughter Elizabeth. Dan works as a farmer, and mentioned he lives up in Croydon. He's getting more famous by the minute now that Dan has appeared here on Stars and Strikes. Does a lot of his bowling at the Sunset Lanes in Newport. And a spare in the second.
Well, it's looking at the 1, 3, and 6 for Paul Willits. It's got to get some offense going. That looks good.
And it is. That's a tough shot when you're trailing and need some marks up on the board. That's the 7th mark for the team.
Right back in the pocket, that close to a strike. Leaves just the 4-pin. Got to hurry with that one.
Ooh.
Not going to be there. A little bit behind himself that time. Body was all done. The foot slide, and the body was there at the foul line. The arm was lagging behind him and left it to the right. Well, Dave Coutermarsh will fill the spare left by his partner, Dan Valcourt, on lane 31. He's right in the pocket.
Boy, I'll tell you, it's really amazing how accurate he really is. He has been on the head pin very consistently, and it's harder to do, you would think, with the stand-up style.
And the extra motion, you know, that's not, well, it's not in the best interest of the bowler. He's been doing this for years, so I think you see the arm swing at the beginning. That's a wasted motion, really serves no purpose at all, except throw strikes. So we're all going to start winding up after this show.
We have people all over the country doing this now. Another double strike for the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt. Their second of the match. They've got the lead, and we'll return in a minute. Tom O'Brien, lane 32 with the 5th frame here in game 3, and it's going to be pretty tough right now, I think.
Well, you got double strike working, and that's going to increase that 50-pin lead. Unless they really butcher it, but they're just throwing the ball so well.
Seven strikes now in the match for Dave Coutermarsh and Larry Valcourt, including 2 doubles. They've each thrown a double. Oh, boy.
189. That's a 9-box, gives him 66. Well, Larry Valcourt working on a double strike.
Oh, there's a big first ball.
That close to a triple. And they're on their way to a pretty good 3-string total.
They had 261 after 2. And there is a spare on the double strike.
Had a
So it's
91 half the last game, and they've got 88 with a ball coming this time. Oh, he's right in the pocket.
working quickly, and there's another 9-drop. 97 in the 5th. disproving our theory again about double scores being lower. That's 5 marks in a row now for the team. They are really pouring it on.
Half Worcester left. Oh, that's a good pickup. I almost thought he was going to convert that for a spare.
It's a 10. For the spare, no, leaving the 5-pin. And it's a 9. So Dave Coutermarsh comes up now, working on a spare, and the team working on just a terrific string. .107 plus a ball, and it's just one as Dave lost that one at the foul line.
Danny Valcourt, his partner, says, that's all right, still a spare leave up there.
Well,
that's right, it almost was.
Well, if there were ever a time that a 1 fill would not be costly, this might have been it. There's the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt, as you see, with that huge lead. Moving bowlers around here.
We're just playing follow the leader now.
We're having a little fun and moving everybody around. Could be, yes. Strike number 8 for the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt. Doesn't matter which lane they bowl on, I guess.
Just an adventure knowing which one, find out which one they're going to go up and bowl on. And right through the middle. Well, next week's challengers, Bob Mazur and Steve Tierney. I've seen Bob Mazur several weeks ago, and Steve Tierney, of course, is making his debut here on Stars and Strikes doubles.
Well, Tom O'Brien may have found the secret. He missed the head pin. Now at least he's got something to shoot at. A 1, 3, and 9. And it'll be a 102 and a 324 for the team of Willits and O'Brien. They got the win last week, but this week they run into a buzzsaw. 2 buzzsaws.
They're already at 389. Plus this fill.
And it'll be a 6 on the strike, so 134 through 8. It'll be up over 150. At a 141 middle game. 142 with a box to come. That's 403 right now. We've had a couple of terrific 3-string totals to qualify for the Tournament of Champions already here on doubles. Gary Carrington and Jack Ray with a 448. And then a couple of weeks ago, Mike Morrill and Jack Quinn with a 412. And Dan marks a final spare in the 10th. That is 15 marks for the team of Coutermarsh and Valcourt. 7 spares, 8 strikes.
Terrific score by a doubles team. The off target would be just 3, but Doesn't really need them.
155 and a 3-string total 416. Big win for Dave Coutermarsh and Dan Valcourt. We'll be back to talk to the bowlers here on Stars and Strikes Doubles in a minute. Don't go away. And welcome back to Park Place Lane. Stars and Strikes Doubles in the books for another week, week 2 of this 4-week series, and a big win for first-time appearances here on Stars and Strikes Doubles as Dave Coutermarsh and Dan Valcourt throw a big 416 to move into the semifinals next week against Bob Mazur and Steve Tierney. More on that in a second, but first of all, let's talk to all our bowlers. A round of applause first, if you please, for Paul Willits and Tom O'Brien. Winners last week, but coming up a little bit short this time, and well, somebody's got to come in here and stand next to me. I know you guys probably don't want to talk a lot about this one, but we have the 4th place prize money for you, splitting $200. And boy, you know, when Tom hit that spare in the 4th box of the second game when he missed it and it came back, I thought maybe you guys were going to get some luck going your way, but it just didn't happen.
Just wasn't our day. They bowled great today. It was fantastic. It was fun watching them. We were cheering them on.
Yeah. A lot of strikes working. Obviously, these guys really had the strike balls going, and the doubles are devastating.
Oh, 2 doubles, matter of fact. You know, it's tough. It's tough when you get down by about 30 or 40 pins, and you know they're like a buzzsaw today. It's tough to come back against a team like that, and they were throwing a great ball. You know, hitting the pocket, the strikes were falling. It's like, well, they 30-pin difference, 40, 50, it's going up and up. You know, it's getting kind of tough. Sooner or later, it gets a little bit frustrating because, you know, you want to hit the pocket and get a spare leave and you get the splits. And it's like, oh, nothing you can do about it. But they bowled well and they deserved it. And good luck to them.
Absolutely, a terrific 416. And well, Tom, you've been here 5 weeks in a row, so basically we wanted to get id of you anyway. So now
I'll be back. I'll be back again. I promise. Hopefully, bring better bowling. I'll have to throw out that bowling tape I've been watching.
You watch Dan's bowling tape and get a few tips.
That's the one I refer to.
Well, we appreciate you guys being here again. We hope to see you again real soon. Thanks very much.
you.
Paul Willits and Tom O'Brien, our runners-up. And now keep the applause going for Dave Coutermarsh and Dan Valcourt, our big winners today. How about a 416? Not too shabby. First time here on the program. Congratulations, guys. And boy, it just didn't seem to matter who was up there or what lane you were on or anything. You were just firing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Cremis, you have a lot of fun when you're bowling like that, and you know, keep it going. And when you get them down, if you can apply the pressure, a lot of times you'll come out ahead.
Well, you know, speaking of pressure, a lot of times there's more pressure bowling in doubles than there is in singles because you're feeling like you're bowling for 2 people, and you feel bad if you can't hold up your end of the bargain. But certainly you guys were just about dead even. You were all throwing strikes, Dave, and everything was working for both of you.
Yeah, it seemed that everything was falling good for us, and we just tried to keep the pressure on and keep bowling good.
Well, what you've got to do now is see if you can string a couple of these together. You've got a couple of guys coming in next week in that number 2 spot who will be taking you on, Bob Mazur and Steve Tierney, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys then. Congratulations.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
All right, Dan Valcourt and Dave Coutermarsh. And let's take a look at that ladder now and bring you up to date again on what's happening here on Stars and Strikes Doubles. We've got our number 2 seeds, Bob Mazur and Steve Tierney, coming in next week, and then of course in 2 weeks it'll be time for another finals and championship week with Mike Morgan and Paul St. Pierre. Dan Murphy rejoins me here, and well, obviously the rule about, if it is a rule, about first-time appearances here on Stars and Strikes Doubles didn't seem to be a factor today.
Not at all. It seemed like they've been here every week, and when you throw that many strikes in a doubles match, it's pretty tough to recover.
We've talked about this before. It's kind of a theory of mine that if someone comes on or a team comes on and throws more strikes than spares, sometimes that can mean they're in trouble because they're not carrying the pins, they're not getting the spares and piling up the consecutive marks that they need. But obviously when you throw double strikes, you don't need that many spares.
Well, that's the one variable we didn't mention about it. If the strikes are spread out, but if they get them together, that's like a double strike. That's like throwing 4 spares in a row. So they bowl well, and they're going to have their work cut out for them next week, though.
All right, Bob Mazur and Steve Tierney will be here, and of course Dan and I will be here starting at 12 noon next Sunday, as we are 2 full hours here on the Winds every Sunday. First with Candlepin Stars and Strikes, and then here on Stars and Strikes Doubles. And of course next week here on the show, beginning at 1 o'clock, Dave Coutermarsh and Dan Valcourt will try and make it 2 in a row as they face our number 2 seeded team of Bob Mazur and Steve Tierney. Until then, for the whole TV50 Sports crew and for Dan Murphy, I'm Doug Brown. So long from Park Place Lanes.